Hi, everyone. I'm Spencer Pauly here today with Tim Clauser, the Center Square's Eastern Washington reporter. And Tim, today we're talking about a recent story of yours regarding Spokane's 2025 point in time count. Now, this was released on Monday and recorded about 1,806 people experiencing homelessness at a single given day in January. That is a 10.6% dip compared to last year. But that decrease has some council members questioning it. And this includes Michael Cathcart, who participated in the point in time count. He described the feedback as unreliable and raised concerns about the survey process. Now, Tim, let's start off with, can you just elaborate on Cathcart's criticisms and how they reflect the broader challenges in collecting accurate homelessness data?
Yeah, I would say his concerns are definitely valid, but I wouldn't say they're unique to Spokane in any way. It's like this point in time count. I mean, you're taking a group of surveyors and yeah, maybe there's dozens or over 100 people that are volunteering to do this survey or to go out and conduct this survey. But at the same time, you have a city like Spokane, which is the second most populous city in the state. And then you're going to try to count every single person that's homeless across the county in one night or within a week period in January, which is just nearly impossible. And Councilmember Cathcart, he spoke to this a little bit. He said, I participated in the survey this year and I was in the Hilliard neighborhood, and the group that he was surveying with, he said they maybe were able to reach 15% of that neighborhood. And I mean, if we're going to say, hey, look, we had a 15% decrease last year, and almost an 11% decrease this year. I mean, how much can we rely on that data if at the same time you're covering these large swaths of area, but you're only covering a fraction of that? He was saying, how many people are we overlooking by not going to these other areas? And then at the same time, you're relying much upon what these people are telling you. And I mean, I have some of the data here right now. It says that 43% of the adults surveyed reported suffering from serious mental illness, and 52% of the adults reported suffering from substance abuse disorder. But I mean, these are people that they're seeing firsthand on the street. And he's saying, look, I'm going and I'm talking to these people. I'm asking, do you have a substance use disorder? And some of them get offended and would say, hey, no, I don't have a problem with that. Much like someone might respond to their doctor asking how much alcohol they drink. They're going to say that there's not a problem. So he was saying, look, we need to figure out ways to address these deficiencies in the process, and also to work in some of that observational data, which the city did do to a degree in the past, but it doesn't seem like that's the case anymore.
I mean, these challenges are very broadly seen all over. That's why the point in time count is seen as such an undercount. I think I've seen somewhere in my own reporting that the point in time count is 2.5 times to 10 times less than what homelessness might be in any given region. And that's just because of the way that it is counted. You have volunteers going out to these areas, like you said, covering maybe 15% of the area. And then, narrow that down to asking these people questions that may offend them, and will they give you an honest answer? So that is definitely something to question. But Tim, one other thing that Cathcart noted is something regarding the phrase, this episode, I'm going to do in quotes here, this episode of homelessness, and how it can change how respondents answer. Now, why does the wording of these questions matter so much? And what does this reveal about the challenges of standardizing data collection?
Yeah. So the question that you're speaking to, oftentimes with these surveys, the groups will go out and they'll ask people like, hey, where did you first become homeless? Or where were you homeless prior to becoming here? And another survey funded by a conservative aligned business group in Spokane, they conducted a study which had a lot of questions raised around the accuracy with its sampling and stuff. But it found that just over 50% of the homeless people that they surveyed were homeless elsewhere before moving to Spokane or living in Spokane. Now,
you're talking real quick. You're talking about the Spokane Business Association study.
Yeah, I'm talking about the SBA study. So they put that number at 50.2%. Now, the point in time count at a completely different number, all the way down to 14%. Now, according to the point in time count this year, 70% of their respondents, which was a much larger sample size than the SBA survey, 70% of the point in time count respondents reported living in Spokane County before becoming homeless. 14% came from Washington State, and another 14% came from outside Washington State. Now, Bingle and Cathcart was saying, look, the question was had a little bit more detail to that. Now, they said the question was, did you live in Spokane before you came homeless this episode? And Cathcart's arguing that, look, that substantially changes the connotation of the question. And Don Kinder, who leads the city's essentially community services department, he said, look, that's not the case. I disagree with you there, but he thinks that it might give some leeway for people to skew that number, so to say. And Jonathan Bingle, another one of the conservative council members in Spokane, he noted this, pointing to the 2023 pit count. Then there's a presentation that he was referencing on Monday where he said, look, we have this 2023 pit count slideshow, and it's saying that almost 2/3 of the respondents were from outside of Spokane and from outside of Washington State, not the 14% that is being led on in the 2025 study. Now, Kinder noted that, look, that slide is a little misleading. It only included 173 surveys of the over 1,600 that were conducted. But there's just some discrepancies in the data. Not only that, but I was provided numbers by the city saying, they didn't do any observational counts for any years except 2023. And they said in 2023, they surveyed about 1,660 people and did observational counts of about 230 or 240 others.
Tim, why was that change made?
Well, that wasn't a change. They're just clarifying some of the data. But I thought it was interesting that when you add those two numbers together, it comes out to just over 1,900 people for 2023.
Yeah.
The 2023 point in time count, the data that was put out said that there was 2,390 people. So, I mean, if there's some discrepancies in the data that they're giving me in between what's put out on press releases and put out in these slideshows, I mean, it's clear to say that there's obviously some inaccuracies in the data. And Kinder didn't deny that during the meeting on Monday. She said, look, the point in time count is just one measurement of many. It's mandated by HUD annually or biannually to continue receiving grant funding, but also to provide a better snapshot across the country. But she said, look, a better way to look at, if we're pushing the needle or not is our quarterly metric performances in these other mandated reports that HUD requires the city and other grant recipients to put out. So, for example, a lot of cities will put out what's called a longitudinal system analysis that looks at almost all of the city's different housing projects, I believe, that are HUD funded. I could be wrong on that, but it looks at much of these housing projects and says, look, who participated in housing services, whether it be going to an emergency homeless shelter for one night, participating in transitional housing or some other varying level of housing, whether that be just a few nights or over a year straight. And that study last year found that from across much of 2024, about 7,200 people accessed housing services in Spokane. Now, that's not to say that all are homeless or have been homeless for a year, but it's to say that, at least one night out of the year, you had over 7,000 people accessing services as compared to time count.
Yeah,
is drastically
time count of 806 people. That is a huge difference.
Yeah. And I think it's important to point those out when you have, like we're talking about this in the light that, these point in time counts are largely inaccurate. And I'm sure you've seen the same covering in Seattle, in King County. But a lot of residents will take these numbers and think, this is truth. This is accurate. And the city is not saying that, it's nice to be able to say, hey, look, this is the second recorded annual dip in a row since 2016. but there's still issues. That's not the true number that we know of, and it's hard to say that we'll ever know that number. But
that's frustrating, though.
Yeah,
Tim?
Yeah, I think it's. Go ahead.
Obviously we cover taxpayer focused stories. And so when you look at, there's a price tag for services, we put money towards these efforts and we don't even have a good idea of how many people we are trying to serve. That becomes frustrating for the public. And I just wonder, people are still believing in some of these statistics, even though we keep reporting that these are just undercounts. There's no sure way to know how many people, because this is a mobile population when we talk about the homeless population. And so I just think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. And it's something that ideally you would like to pin down from a taxpayer perspective, with that money going to that area. And a lot of the city council has voiced support for that, trying to track all these metrics. And they do, and they are improving on that, but there's definitely room to continue in that regard. They would like to see, this project is doing this. We've had this percentage of people transitioning into treatment or into housing. So we're going to pull money away from this other service that is underperforming and put more money into this. That's ideally how it would work. And I think they're positioning themselves in a way to do that in the future, but it's going to take time. I mean, we and some business owners might wish, from a taxpayer viewpoint, let's make that happen now. But is that entirely realistic? I think it's probably somewhere in between what business owners and taxpayers would like and what the city would think is ideal.
I want to bring it back lastly just to the point in time count and the way they conduct it. Now, I believe Spokane does it the traditional way, in which you go door to door in a sense, and you just tally how many people are living on the streets or within the Spokane shelter services. Now, I've covered King County does a different way, and that is through a quote respondent driven sampling. So they collaborate with the University of Washington, hand out flyers for unhoused people who will distribute to their peers. And they coerce them into taking these surveys through $20 Visa gift cards. That is the best way, they said, to get people to do this quote snowball sampling. Now, is that more accurate than the traditional way? Hard to tell. But the King County continues to refine how they want to do the point in time count. And so next year they're considering expanding its reach by doing these mobile data hubs in areas with just basically a high concentration of unhoused residents. So you don't have these people having to take like a bus somewhere just to do it to get a $20 gift card, right? And that's aimed to improve the accuracy. Whether or not it would work, whether or not they even do it, that's to be seen. But Tim, my last question is, I'm wondering, do you know at this point if Spokane is looking at maybe refining their point in time count the way they conduct it? Or is that just too early to tell yet?
I mean, I could be wrong, assuming here with King County, but I think King County and Spokane are both always trying to improve their point in time count, kind of like what you said, how King County is taking a different stab at that. I think it's clear that when you have municipalities in these jurisdictions all over the country, not taking one single uniform approach, that's definitely also going to skew statistics, but you're really dealing with the populace of the area. I mean, Spokane County, you have Spokane County, the largest city there is the city of Spokane, where I think about half, if not more than half of the county population lives. Then you have the city of Spokane Valley, which is just right next door. But other than that, the communities are smaller and kind of spaced out, whereas in King County, you have Seattle, Burien, all these other major metros in comparison. I mean, Spokane, the city of Spokane might be the second most populous city, but really when you look at King County, Seattle is the biggest city in the house, but it is a collection of cities that are very close together. A lot of them merge. You go from one to another without even realizing you've crossed that jurisdictional line. So I think I can't say that the way that Spokane conducts it is the way that King County should do it, because maybe Spokane can do it that way in one night, and that might take King County weeks to do, considering how much larger the population is in there. So I think both are taking steps to improve.
It's also a lot of help through your nonprofit organizations collaborating with the King County Regional Homelessness Authority compared to how many nonprofits are willing to help Spokane with their work. It might just not be as much, right? And that could be a thing.
Yeah. It comes back to the area that you're in. I mean, you got the I-5 corridor in Seattle, and that's going all the way down to California. You're going through Tacoma, you're going through Portland, you're going through all those areas. And Spokane has I-90, which is another major freeway, but there's not much in between Seattle and Spokane on I-90, whereas on I-5, you're hitting these major metros every few minutes. So the service providers in Spokane are more than willing to help out. There's community members, there's lots of people that help. But the amount of service providers and people that you have in that area is much smaller in comparison to King County, where a huge portion of the state population lives in comparison.
Well, Tim, great article as always. Appreciate your reporting, and we'll end this here. So to all the listeners, viewers at home, thanks for doing so, and we'll see you next week.